TCI is brought to you by Spendthrift Stallion Temple City, a top 3 freshman sire of 2014 and Dynaformer's best looking son at stud.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Breeders' Cup. Alongside Joel Cunningham, I'm John Siegel. Well, Joel, we got a ton to talk about. Fall Stars weekend. But first, we have to recap Super Saturday from last weekend. I want to talk about the Classic division. You know, we saw Toneless in action. We said, here's a 3-year-old that's going to step up against older horses. Joel, he did, and he did in a big way.
He really did. Got the blinkers off and got away from Saratoga, John, where, you know, his stock really dropped there. He didn't run nearly as well there as he's run everywhere else. Got back to Belmont. We know he likes that track, having won the Peter Pan and the Belmont Stakes there. Blinkers off, I think, was key for him. You know, I knew 1.25 miles was his distance, but for him to be able to relax and make that last 3/8 of a mile run, you saw him extend that stride. In my opinion, I think he puts himself squarely back into the Classic picture now.
Well, he had to overcome some trouble, too, that Moreno caused.
Yep.
You know, I think the blinkers messed with Moreno just a little bit. He clips heels with Wicked Strong. That was unfortunate. Could have been a lot worse, but...
Well, the jockey tried to dive up the rail. Obviously, Wicked Strong clips heels. Moreno's disqualified. Wicked Strong is now out for the year, so very disappointing hit to the Classic division there. But watch out for Moreno. You know, he himself didn't run a bad race. In my opinion, over at Santa Anita track, if they don't respect his speed, he's still a player.
All right, well, let's look out at Santa Anita, and let's take a look at Shared Belief. You know, this was a horse that we already knew he could take on older horses. We really thought he was the class in California. He proved that to be right.
Absolutely. Let's go now to the Twin Spires TV race replay. We'll quickly look at the Awesome again, and we'll just show you how wide he is here. Everybody heard about his wide trip. Obviously, Victor Espinoza got days for his ride aboard Baffert's other horse, the Long Shot, pushing Mike Smith and Shared Belief out in the middle of the racetrack. So he ran substantially longer than everybody else. You see the speed holding on here with Fed Biz. The fact that Shared Belief was wide and still gutted out a win here just shows his quality. Now the question is, it's not a big horse. Is this going to take something out of him and maybe cause him not to run his A race next month? That's a question mark, having come off of a hard performance like this. But I think he's just so good, John, right now with the defection in this division. You know, when you look at Will Take Charge out, Palace Malice out, the fact that that's at his home track at Santa Anita, the local prep winner, you have to say he's on top.
Well, you said the question is, you know, is it going to take a lot out of him? I think the question is, did he do enough to jump into the #1 spot on a TCI top 5?
I don't see why you can't have him on top. I just mentioned that 111 Briz and that number in the Pacific Classic out 1.25 miles, even though that was Poly. We know he can handle the distance. That's what I always was concerned about the horse all along. Toneless jumps back in the conversation. You know, I sold the stock at Saratoga. I'm buying back in now. Blinkers off at 1.25 miles. Moreno, again, I still think his speed, if you don't respect him, I have a gut feeling he's going to run big at Santa Anita. California Chrome, don't like his form right now, but I think this division's so thin now with the defections at the top end. Will Take Charge, Palace Malice. It just feels like that type of year, John, that a Long Shot can win, and that's really why I have Candy Boy, you know, as a closer maybe over Majestic Harbor rather. If they run Candy Boy in the Classic at 1.25 miles and he gets a pace, he could be that Long Shot upsetter.
All right, well, we got a lot of races to talk about. As I mentioned, it's Fall Stars weekend. We're going to have to roll through these races, Joel. Let's start off at Keeneland because it's always exciting around here when it's opening weekend at Keeneland. And let's talk about Wise Dan. You know, we're going to see him at a race that we know he likes. That's the Shadwell Turf Mile. What do you think of his chances in that?
Well, he's won it the last 2 years. I mean, this is a horse that likes all going. I mean, we could get a turf course that's not ideal, you know, with the weather coming in. But he likes all type of courses, John. This horse has just brought his A game for the last 2 years. The question is his A game good enough anymore? I mean, you know, we give him the benefit of the doubt last time at Saratoga. Horses were getting to him, but it was his first race off a layoff since the colic issue he had. Can he now run an improved race, or is that just going to be his form now going into the Breeders' Cup? Has he lost a half a step? If he has, I think this is a good enough field to be able to run at him, but certainly the race starts with Wise Dan.
All right, now let's talk about the Breeders' Futurity. This is an exciting race every year, but it's got a little more excitement this year because you know why? Keeneland's back on dirt. Let's talk about Carpe Diem. Joel, this is a horse that is #1 right now on the TCI top 5. You think he's got a big shot to win there?
I absolutely do. His pedigree screams 2 turns. It looks like he has a ton of quality. They obviously paid $1.6 million after this breeze, which ironically I didn't think was a very good breeze on the synthetic there, but they knew what they were buying into. This is a dirt horse. He's a 2-turn type colt. I think he's going to show his quality this weekend. My concern is he gives up so much quality over this, or he gives up so much experience over this entire field, I should say.
Yeah.
Quality is there, but the experience factor going from a 5.5 furlong maiden race to a 2-turn mile in a 16th race, there's going to be a ton of extra speed in the race, so he's not going to be able to control his trip in here. He's going to have to take some dirt. How is he going to run with that, with the lack of experience?
All right, the number 2 colt on the TCI top 5 for the juvenile is also in action, and that is in the Champagne. And of course, I'm talking about I Spent It. How do you think he'll do?
Yeah, we got a lot of our top juveniles in action this weekend, so a lot's going to play out here. That's a 1-turn mile. I Spent It with his win at 7/8 at Saratoga. When he got a pace in front of him, he was allowed to really extend his stride. We saw how good he was. I don't think he was on his A game when he ran second in the Hopeful. Now coming back here at Belmont, a big wide turns. He's going to get a ton of speed in front of him. I mean, I look at this race, and I think there's a lot of early speed. He's going to be able to sit off of it, pick his type of trip. He broke his maiden at Belmont. I expect him to win. All
right, let's move now to the fillies, and let's talk about the Frisette. We have our number 1 and our number 2. Of course, I'm talking Cavorting and Feathered. Joel, what do you think about these two in a matchup?
I mean, what a great field the Frisette is. Another 1-turn mile race, but you have Condo Commando in here. Obviously, your winner last time out in a Grade 1 at Saratoga. She's going to have some speed. By the Moon looks like she has some quality. Wonder Gal has some quality. But for me, like you said, Cavorting's number 1 on our list. She comes back in here off her dominant performance at Saratoga. She beat a key field in there, Angela Renee, that day, fair and square on the dime. Showed a nice finishing kick in here. So her coming back at a 1-turn mile, I think this is her race to lose coming out of there. But I think this is going to be a good race. I mean, I mentioned the talented fillies. What about Feathered? She's number 2 in the TCI top 5, John. This is a Todd Pletcher filly. It's not getting a lot of ink right now. Angel Renee is getting all the ink out of that barn. But let me tell you, this filly can run. She was compromised in her debut, came back second time out at Saratoga, and was just powerful from the 8th pole of the wire. I think she can set off the pace, show that turn of foot. I think a mile is going to be right up her alley. I think this filly can give Cavorting a run for her money, so watch out for Feathered.
It's going to be some exciting racing for sure, but let's talk about the Santa Anita Sprint, because it's time to launch the TCI top 5 in the sprint division. And Joel, we got a couple horses that will be in action on this list in that Santa Anita Sprint. Let's start off at number 5, though, and let's start off with Palace. Joel, this horse is having a huge year. I think he lost his last time out, but this horse is running really well.
Well, Rockfall's injured. Clearly now's injured. Palace has been the horse that's been consistent in New York. You know, Bakken has not been running lately. This is the East Coast horse, and really, he's the only horse from the Midwest or East Coast that's going to make this list for me. I don't know about him shipping to Santa Anita and handling that experience at 6 furlongs. That's why I have 4 California horses ahead of him.
Joe, I see in at number 4, you have another Grade 1 winner in Big Macher. This horse has already won a couple races in Santa Anita. I can see why you have him in there.
Yeah, he's one of California's best sprinters. Has been all year. Very consistent horse. This is a home game for him, and he's going to come in fresh, John. He looks like he's working well at Santa Anita, but they're bypassing the Santa Anita Sprint Championship and probably training right up to the Breeders' Cup Sprint. And for me, I think he's a 6 to 8 to 1 shot in the race, so he's live.
All right, and at number 3, there's a horse that you've always liked, Secret Circle. Tell me why you got him in there.
Well, he's coming in fresh. It's almost like Bob's business plan that he had last year for the horse. You know, the horse has had some setbacks, raced early this year, but now they're bringing him in. Good Work Series coming in to where he's going to be a big player this weekend at Santa Anita Sprint Championship. Remember, he was number 1 for us last year, and he wound up winning.
All right, and at number 2, you got Private Zone, another horse that you've always been very high on. Joel, this horse was impressive over the weekend. You still got him in at number 2.
And while I said Secret Circle is number 1, I actually picked Private Zone to win the sprint last year. Was very disappointed in his performance off of his Vosburg win last year. Well, this year, he wins the Vosburg again in similar fashion. I mean, shows a ton of grit on the inside after he gets past to come back and win that race. I like that gameness. I think this is a top-class horse at 6 furlongs. I think he's supposed to run his best third off the layoff next time out at Santa Anita. My question is, what happened to him last year? He came back in Cigar Mile, almost stole that on the lead at 30-something to 1 after the Breeders' Cup. So we know the quality's there. Will he show up in the Breeders' Cup? That's my question for Private Zone, and that's why I don't have him number 1 this year.
All right, well, the horse that you have in at number 1 always shows up, always runs, very game. Of course, we're talking about Goldencents. Joel, I guess my question, you know, is this horse going to run in the sprint, or do you think they'll stretch him out a little bit?
Well, that's a great question. Last year in the Santa Anita Championship, he almost ran down, you know, a horse that was going to be your favorite in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, the Cowbred that passed away, and his name escapes me at the moment. So we know 6 furlongs off the pace is well within this brilliant horse's capability. Will they run him in the sprint? hey, it's more money than the dirt mile. Why not? When you look at the sprint division now, depending on what happens this week, if he beats Secret Circle in that field in the Santa Anita Sprint Championship, why not run him for more money in the sprint as opposed to defending the dirt mile? So that's why I have him number 1. I still think it's a possibility they could run him in that sprint.
I think that colt's name was Points Off the Bench.
It is Points Off the Bench. Good one.
Yeah, that was disappointing. He was a heck of a racehorse.
I know.
I'll tell you what, man, this is going to be another exciting weekend. This is the last weekend, you know, of the Breeders' Cup prep races. Then we're right here, man. We're on top of the Breeders' Cup. It's amazing how fast time is flying by. Yep. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back next week. We'll recap Fall Stars weekend, and we're going to launch a TCI Top 5 in the mile and the dirt mile.